Here are our guests today. I will show you video number one. Sure.
Walked on to the nationally renowned USC women's volleyball team, where she was met with low expectations.
No one honestly thought that I would ever touch the court. No one knew who I was, but I knew that I was good enough to be here.
It's that confidence that not only helped Garrick step into a starting defensive specialist and libero position for the Trojans, but also earned her a place in the school's history books as one of the few to ever record 1,000 career digs.
I just worked really hard and I earned that spot.
Her story is an inspiring one of perseverance and intestinal fortitude, but there is so much more. Last spring, Victoria started a movement to open up discussion on a topic most deemed taboo.
I'm Victoria Garrick. I'm here to talk about mental health in athletes.
According to a 2011 survey conducted by the NCAA, over 50% of student athletes have experienced anxiety or depression. If anything, that number has only grown.
Before I was a Division I athlete, I thought that this couldn't affect me. This will never be me. I'm too happy, I have too much going on in my life that won't be me. And then it was me.
Rather than ignore her symptoms, Garrick attacked her illness head-on, publicly, taking to the TED Talk stage and laying her story out for the world to see and hear.
When it finally came out, I mean, the reaction was insane. I had people from Canada emailing me, Brazil. I had people all across the country on different teams, girls I'd played against, messaging me on Facebook, on Instagram, saying, this talk, this is exactly how I feel, or I had no idea.
It almost did not happen at all. She was turned down by TED Talk administrators at first, but was given a reprieve.
I said, this is going to be different. It's going to appeal to a totally different audience. It's going to bring up a conversation that hasn't started yet.
Schools across the country used her speech in student-athlete advisory meetings, and even some professors showed the 20-minute video in their classes.
I'll never forget, I played Kentucky this season, and we were high-fiving, and one girl was like, good game, good game. I loved your TED Talk, good game, good game.
Garrick's speech resonated so much that USC faculty selected her to bring this topic to Kobe Bryant's attention when he came to campus.
I've always been such a confident person who's outgoing, and that never went away, even when I was struggling and I went through something stigmatized. I still talked about it and I still brought it forward, and I didn't think too much about the impact it would have.
With close to 40,000 views on YouTube and counting, Garrick's TED Talk left a profound impression with others, but perhaps more importantly, with herself.
If I'm limping, someone can see it and they can tell me, hey, you're not okay, you need to stop. But when it's just inside my head, no one knows what's going on. We should be more attentive to the psychological health of people just as much as we are the physical health.
By practicing positive self-talk, meditation and visualization, and writing out lists of personal achievements, Garrick was able to get to a mental equilibrium.
I can't believe that I did it because it was so hard, but I'm just proud that I did because I look back on how I used to feel and I hear the words I said in my TED Talk, and I can't believe that I felt that low because right now I'm at such a high.
Okay. So that is guest number one. And guest number two, and they are good friends, went to the same school. So guest number two.
Two-time Olympian and 10-year U.S. national team member Nicole Davis says her success derives from an unlikely source: failure.
We talk about the process of learning and making mistakes, and it's great to make mistakes because that's the fastest way you learn, but we want to make mistakes and then learn from it really quick, so we're going to fail as fast as we possibly can.
Davis stands at just 5'4", yet despite her size, she is known as a tough competitor.
First I think ninja, because she's a black belt, and she does whatever it takes to win the next point. And she's tough, man. If I was going into battle, I'd want her by my side for sure.
And she's incredible. She's a two-time Olympian, so it's hard not to look up to someone like that.
Davis loves her position as libero. despite the fact that many mispronounce it.
Well, actually, it's an Italian word, and so that's why I say libero. Most Americans will say libero. The word means free, and I think they named the position that because we move freely on off the court. We don't count as a substitution.
Nicole's teammates call her Shorty, yet her passion to win is anything but small.
You know, I'm in a dream job right now. It can't get much better than this. I've traveled the world, and I get to represent our country.
The USC alum has had many career highlights.
We lost maybe 6 times in 4 years, and we had an undefeated season and won 2 national championships. And I don't know, I couldn't have asked for more in a career at USC.
Yet Davis says her time at USC happened by chance.
I was actually recruited to SC because Jarrett Elliott, who was the coach at the time, came to watch my 6'4" opposite on my club team and noticed me. I never imagined that I would go on to play on the national team or in the Olympics, certainly not to play professionally for 10 years.
College memories include playing volleyball with former USC head football coach Pete Carroll.
I used to play we called it Tuesday night volley, out on the beach with the Carrolls. There would be AVP players out there like Carrie and her husband, and then there would be NBA players out there playing volleyball. You know, there'd be 22-year-olds and 50-year-olds, and I just think it's a unique game in that you can throw a bunch of people on a court and still kind of compete but have a great time, and I don't think you see that a lot with a lot of other sports.
The best may be yet to come as the USA Volleyball Cup starts July 5th in Irvine, California.
We're hosting Brazil, and to be able to host #1 team in the world and a team that has ended our Olympic streak for the last 4 years in a row, including, you know, in the gold medal match the last 2 years, is pretty neat.
USA women's volleyball head coach Karch Karai believes that Davis's drive is an asset to the team.
Is helping guide this process of trying to strive to be better. We're trying to be better and do this game better than Americans have ever done it before, better than American women have ever done it before. And she's clearly dedicated to try to help make that happen.
For Nicole, the biggest reward is being a team player.
For me, one of the most special aspects of the game is the connection that you have with the teammates. Women that I've played with for the last 10 years that I would absolutely run through walls for.
As Team USA finishes another day of practice on the court, they will be back tomorrow, pushing themselves to be ready for the upcoming battle against Brazil. For USA Volleyball, this is Megan Guthrie of the Cronkite Sports Bureau in Los Angeles.
Okay, so we have...
After being cut from the USA volleyball team.
All right, so just waiting for everybody to get on. I see Victoria is in our waiting room, and just waiting for Nicole to come on as well. So give some thought to what kind of questions you might ask. We've got them for half an hour. A D1 big-time player and an Olympian. Maggie is fangirling right now. Yep. Okay. So let's. All right. So Victoria, you are here first. You're here before Nicole. We know who the super prepared person is.
Hi there.
All right. So I just did a little video of both of you guys, kind of talking about what you've done. Oh, Nicole's here too. Let me admit her. Okay. This is so weird getting used to doing everything electronically here instead of in person. There's Nicole. Okay, so we've got both of you guys. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for coming on and being part of this. Really, really appreciate it. As a matter of fact, I wore my most formal sweatpants for today. So that's totally because of you guys. So I've got my class here. It is Health Psychology 250 at Immaculata, and I think you probably see everybody. And I just did a little bit of an introduction to try and save a little time. So I did a couple of videos sort of showing what your guys' accomplishments were and a little bit about what you do now. But I will turn it over to you guys, and I will stop talking so I don't waste any of this precious time that we have with you guys. And I do have some questions that I sent over to you, and I will pull them up as well. But students, this is your time. This is for you. So as you have questions, make sure you get them out there now. So Nicole, Victoria, thank you so much, and it's all yours.
Thanks for having us. Can you hear us okay?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'm so new to Zoom. Well, glad to be here. Did you want us to just background ourselves before questions?
Yeah. Just give a little background about what you're doing now. I guess a little bit about your experience. So I know. So what I had showed was basically about how, Victoria, you've become kind of a champion for mental health in sports, and Nicole, how you're working, giving the talks now about mindset and sports. So the majority of people that we have here, not everybody, but a lot of them are athletes. But I think the messages that you guys talk about in terms of mindset really appeals to real life as well. So, not that sports aren't real life, but it's something that I think even non-athletes can appreciate when you're talking about dealing with challenges and facing adversity and things like that. So that's why I wanted to make sure that everybody is part of it and that we're all on the same page. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a decent lead in there.
Nicole, why don't you start us off? You are the mindset queen.
Thanks, Victoria. Hey, gang. So as Jeff probably said, two-time Olympian, Victoria and I went to the same university, USC. I graduated way back when. And I retired from playing volleyball professionally and with the USA team in 2015. And I jumped right into essentially sports and performance psychology with Fortune 500 companies. So I was doing a lot of performance work with Microsoft, Google, SAP, Boeing, those types of things, doing 8 hours, basically psychoeducational workshops. And I remember saying explicitly when I retired in 2015, I will not go back to school. It was the last thing that I wanted to do. And now I'm back in school doing a doctoral program in clinical psychology because I had done so much work before I retired on mindset and understanding who I was as a person outside of the sport and being kind of real clear on what I valued. And the thing that I kept finding myself most overwhelmed when I retired, not by not being an athlete anymore, but how much more I wanted to learn because I was seeing the impact of teaching mental skills and psychology to all of these executives. And then I'd have these conversations with young athletes, or I started having private clients, and I was just enjoying that work so much. And I started to recognize how much I really love being in the trenches with people and exploring potential. But I'm doing a doctoral program in clinical psychology because you can't really get a doctorate in sports psychology. And I also started to recognize that it's really important to understand the full spectrum of the human experience. So historically, clinical psychology is the study of disease and dysfunction. And positive psychology, health psychology, performance psychology is about thriving and flourishing. And we all have an array of experiences in life. And what I started to recognize was through my own experience and reflecting on that, but also with the clients that I was working with, there's a lot of depression in elite populations. There's a lot of anxiety in elite populations. There's a lot of body image issues in elite populations. There's a lot of personality disorder or disordered traits in elite populations. So I didn't feel like I knew enough. And so I'm knee deep in finishing my first year of a doctoral program, and I'm as stressed as you are, but I love stress because I've done work to have a relationship with it that is sort of optimal. So that's my background. And I was really fortunate that when I retired, I got to volunteer coach at USC. And so that's how Victoria and I know each other. And I am so stoked for her in the way that she has lived her life since finishing at USC, and really just found an authentic voice to speak from, and seeing the effects of that because people gravitate towards her and her message. So Victoria, over to you.
I'm blushing. Thank you. I love Nicole, so I'm so grateful that I got to meet Nicole at USC. Actually, fun fact, I feel like had Nicole not come and volunteer coached, I would have probably like gone way off the volleyball deep end and like not been able to figure it out because there was so much press and so much stress and pressure playing at USC. And so for me, I guess my backstory is I played volleyball at USC. I graduated in 2019. So this is my first year not being a student athlete at college. And I have since sort of taken a path to advocate for mental health issues and body image issues in student athletes, because when I was playing, I felt like I was totally blindsided by the mental health issues that I had because of the high pressure environment and lifestyle that a lot of us experience as student athletes. And so when going through that, I just realized that I wanted to help promote that conversation and be a voice for those student athletes, because it is stigmatized in general, mental health, but it is also especially stigmatized for, like Nicole mentioned, elite populations, where people view you as so high achieving, so determined, so strong, that there's even more of a stigma surrounding mental health as weakness. So I have since been advocating for that, and I've been really grateful to do that and visit college campuses and speak to student athletes. And I am grateful to be on this video with you all today.
Wonderful. Thank you
so
much.
You hit us with some questions, Jeff. Sorry to interrupt. Do you want us to dive into those questions? I kind of want the students to be able to ask questions.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's the that's where I want to basically start with, you know, what questions the students have, and we could use those as fallback if anybody gets tongue-tied. So yeah, I'll bring up my chat over here in case anybody wants to chat, but just feel free to hop on and use your audio.
So my name is Maggie. I'm a psychology major at Immaculata. So a question for Nicole. What were some like struggles like with like schooling and everything? Like, how is that going? Like, do you have any advice for like us, I guess, undergrad students to help us like get through the schoolwork and stuff?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think what's most interesting for me right now being in the doctoral program is that I was a professional athlete and played at the Olympics, you know, so like the way that I think about pressure is so different than the people in my cohort that are just out of undergraduate doing the doctoral program, you know. And so I've had these like life experiences at like the pinnacle of my sport where like pressure is very different than I perceive it now, you know. So what I've noticed is like when midterms happen, my first semester, like when I parked on campus, there was like this collective like anxiety that like I could feel. It was almost like trying to like push me around because all of the students were so like stressed, like distressed, you know, like hopefully you know the difference between distress and like eustress. There's like good stress and bad stress. There's like this distress everywhere that's like palpable, like I could feel it, to the point where I like actually like talked one of my classmates like out of a panic attack, like for 90 minutes. I had to sit with her because she was like so stressed about it. And so what I want to say is like how we perceive what we're doing really matters. And so like yes, outcomes matter, our grades matter, but what you might be learning in psychology, and some of you maybe are learning, is how we think also determines how we perform. So our ability to like sit down in a chair and be grounded when we're taking a test versus like thinking about all the things that could go wrong, that'll determine whether you can think clearly and critically in that moment. It'll also determine like how recovered you will be afterwards. So like if you find yourself like just exhausted after finals, not just because you're not sleeping enough, but because you're just like burning through more resources, like the more anxious you are on like a regular basis, you know? So if we can start to pivot a little bit and how we think about the things that we're doing. And so this applies to test taking, this applies to big games, quote unquote, big games. This applies to anything we do in life. What if you could bring a more of a lens of curiosity? Like, I wonder how fun this can be. I wonder how good I can feel right now. I wonder how much humor or myself I can bring to this. I wonder what's on the other side of this. Like, if we really care about pursuing our potential in some sort of way, we have to become comfortable with the idea that like we have to like go through some shit to get to the good stuff. Nothing beautiful comes from doing easy things. One of my mentors used to say, if you want to feel good about yourself, go play against fourth graders. And so you guys have chosen to be student athletes for a reason. You would probably be bored and understimulated if you were just students and didn't participate in sports, right? So there's a part of all of you that like really likes challenge, but we all have like this threshold where challenge feels like it's just a little too much. And so when you're at that edge, really check in with yourself, like what are the quality of my thoughts? Because if you can pivot a little bit with how you're thinking about something, it'll change how you're feeling as well, and it'll also change how you perform through that. So get to a place where you like, my greatest hope is that like when I'm helping people through things, that like they can be in the most difficult times of their life and still kind of grin because they have some sort of like command of mind and command of their thoughts, that they know something good is on the other side of it, right? So can you find moments to grin when shit is hitting the fan, you know? Like that's a beautiful thing. Victoria, you're an undergrad, so you're a little bit closer to it, and have a little bit more perspective. What would you add to that?
I mean, you said so many great things. So just, I guess the quick thing I'll say is I just took the bar. I think as athletes, we want to achieve and we want to be the best we can be. And I would just say, you know what? It is impossible for me to be a straight student, daughter and sister. It's like impossible without a detriment to your mental health and your happiness to be perfect in all aspects of your life. So I just was very okay with the ebb and flow of, okay, I didn't get the best grade, but I had an amazing game. I was able to call my parents and I studied, but I didn't have my best mindset in practice. And I was just like, you know what? I'm human. Today was my volleyball day. Tomorrow might be my school day. And I just was okay with not being perfect. And then that sort of allowed me to be more free and mitigate a lot of that stress.
Wonderful.
I actually have a question. So the NCAA, with like all the coronavirus stuff they're putting on, like I guess either one of you can answer this, but they put out a survey and sent it to like all the student athletes, like D3, D2, D1, and had them answer questions, I guess, like about how they're coping with, you know, especially, you know, from all grades, like freshmen to seniors, like how are you coping with like the loss of your season? For spring athletes like me, lost my senior season, that sucks. But like, what are the resources that their school is offering, like from their coaches, athletic trainers, like staff at the school, and like asking about like their feelings, like depression, anxiety, and things like that. So do you think that that's going to even further promote, you know, discussion about mental health, not just like after, you know, this season is over or like after you're done playing your sport, but also like what kind of resources are available to students, and how does a school like promote, I guess, talking about the mental health of their student athletes, like because of that, if they're, you know, asking every single athlete about that now?
I guess the first thing I'm thinking is I would hope so. I would hope that right now, given coronavirus, it will reveal how many gaps and empty spaces there are with the support for student athletes. That this is something that the NCAA really cannot ignore now. Like, what is going on? Because previously it has been easy to sort of look the other way. And, you know, a few years ago, they weren't surveying those things. And those are surveys I think that they should be distributing regardless of COVID-19. So I'm hoping that, you know, this time, as heartbreaking as it is for you and the athletes, I mean, man, that sucks and I feel for you. You know, they can start to realize the impact and the effects of that this has on a lot of student athletes, and then hopefully try to fill in those gaps and create some more rules that don't allow programs to go without the necessary mental health support. So I hope to see that come from this. Nicole, what do you think?
I would say it would be tragic, yeah, if something doesn't. And the reason being is, like, I think previously what student athletes went through in terms of mental health was their problem, quite frankly, you know? And then there's, like, it's compounded by the issue that, like, not every program has adequate resources. And what a silver lining of COVID has been is that everyone is experiencing mental health issues right now. I don't have anxiety. My baseline, like, is very, very calm. I don't worry about a whole lot of nothing. I feel anxious right now. For me, you know, like, my concentration is suffering right now. My motivation is lower than it's been, you know? So, like, high functioning individuals are feeling the impact of this pandemic, the impact of isolation. Isolation is the #1 predictor of mental health over a lifespan, which is something you guys, you know, hopefully have learned. So, like, everyone is feeling the impact of these changes. And so when we look at, like, what takes place for student athletes, it's a lot of change, it's a lot of adjusting, it's a lot of stress, it's a lot of pressure. And now everyone is experiencing what student athletes experience. So there's more of a spotlight on mental health right now because it's a greater issue. And so what I'm hoping is, because it's a broader issue now, that when things get back to normal, hopefully they won't go back to normal, that these conversations will lead to lasting change. Fun questions. Keep them coming.
So this is for either of you. What factor do you think the coach has on, say, the players' like mental health, whether it be positive or negative? If, like, the coach sees that the player's down, and if he or she looks the other way or takes them out of practice and talks to them, and what role that think either helps or worsens if they look the other way?
Cool. Do you
Victoria,
want
do
to
you
go
want to
first?
speak to your experience? I could speak for an hour on this.
Sure,
so I don't know
sure.
if you want to speak to your experience real quick.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that you said was, what sort of, I think you said, like, impact or something does the coach have on the player? And right when you said that, my immediate thought was, as much of an impact as you're going to let them have. And for the first part of your statement, I would think, like, early on, like, are they saying I'm good? Are they complimenting me after the game? Did they compliment me for this award or whatnot? And then, you know, not receiving that validation constantly made me feel like I wasn't good enough. And then you get the negative got to a place where I was like, good or bad, compliment or insult, I'm not letting it affect me. And that allowed me to sort of break free from, you know, letting my coach's opinion of me or their changing attitude every day affect me. So that's, like, kind of the first part I want to say. And the second thing is, I think it really matters for the coaches to show that mental health matters on their team. Because, you know, when a star player shows up and is limping or can't swing the way they want or whatnot, the coaches are like, where's the trainer? Like, what's wrong with this kid's shoulder? They're immediately worried. Yet if a kid is down, sometimes we often see the coaches like, hey, why are you not trying hard today? Like, where are you at today? Get in the practice today. And, like, they treat that injury differently because they cannot see it. And it makes it harder for the athlete to feel valid in that injury because we're trying to, like, prove it to someone. And that's this weird thing that we never do with physical injuries. We don't prove them to people. You can see them. So, you know, when I interact with college coaches, I do my best to try to encourage them to ask the player and give the player the opportunity to say, either one, yeah, sorry, I wasn't in it today, just not my day, or two, you know, I'm really struggling right now. I have a midterm I'm studying for, I just failed a test. My parents are fighting, like, and give them the opportunity to be like, yeah, I'm struggling right now. So, I mean, I hope that coaches do that. And that is something that, like, I personally encourage. But then on the other hand, like, some coaches are old school, that's not their vibe. And so I knew, okay, then I'm going to take the struggle to the psychologist, or I'm going to take the struggle to the assistant coach who does care more about us, or the captain who I look up to, and find a way to work through that. Because even if the coach isn't going to give you the time of day, your mental health still deserves the time of day. I hope that was helpful. But like Nicole said, many things to say. Nicole, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll just say the best coaches in the world understand that dynamic, that like if we look at, general theories on performance, thoughts drive emotions and behavior, which is what drives performance. So the best coaches in the world, rather than coaching strategy and tactics, they'll go to the top and talk with athletes when they see those signs, which means as a coach, you have to be present enough to see changes in behavior, right? Because behavior is the artifact of thought. We don't know anyone's thought. And it is a huge mistake to assume that we know, but we can see the artifact of thought. And so the best coaches in the world pay close attention to those slightly different changes in behavior. And then they speak to what's taking place from a top-down process rather than a bottom-up process. And strategy and tactics and technique, that's bottom-up. And so I've been fortunate to be around some of the best coaches in the world. I've been fortunate to be around some of the worst coaches in the world. And there's a difference. And it does matter for a lot of reasons. If we look at basic psychological needs, I'm going to bring this back to psychology because it's psychology class. Like, what is a basic psychological need? Let's look like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? To feel safe, to have a sense of belonging, connectedness, to feel loved, right? Those are basic before we can get to actualization. So coaches are trying to help us actualize, but they often skip like the basic needs. And so it's a huge mistake to do that. And then if you just look at like general theories on learning and motivation, the relationship that we have with others matters. And so I would love for us, and it's funny that like I'm speaking to this side because for so long, Victoria, I talked to you about like your, like what you said, like fuck the coaches, like you just got to be able to do you, like, and yes, best case scenario, that's what we want to get to. We want to get to a point where like we can be a world-class coach to ourselves because most of us aren't. And that's like regardless of what the people around us are saying, coaches or teammates. But that's not always the case because we do have a deeply wired need to belong and to fit in. And so we're always going to be fighting our DNA when we're getting some sort of like negative reinforcement in our environment. And so there is a balance, like we hope for great coaches, but we also want to have great enough command of mind and awareness to be able to coach ourselves in a world-class way when our coaches can't do it for us.
Thank you.
Nice question, Greg. Nice. Oh, and we have a chat question here. How did either of you convey to your coaches and other teammates that you were struggling and needed support? So that's a really good question. How do you actually say it if you feel like you need help?
I guess I'll start this off as someone who wears her mental health proudly. For one of the things I had to do to feel more okay with coming forward with my mental health issues was sort of reminding myself that like my coach is human. I think we look at our coaches and think that they are superior and they are so amazing or not even amazing, but just like in charge, that they don't ever cry and they don't love their families and they're just like sport people, right? So I had to literally be like, Victoria, your coach has grandchildren. Your coach has cried. Your coach has like experienced anxiety. And I had to be like, this is a human being, and every single human being at some point in their life has experienced something challenging and tough that has been difficult to overcome, especially a coach that's probably in their 30s, right? They've been through some sort of heartbreak. So knowing that made me feel better about like, you know what, and this is my moment, this is my struggle. And on some level, they have to acknowledge like that is a human thing. But then at the same time, I think for me, I can't stress this enough, like as athletes, it is okay to put yourself first. We so often are raised with, there's no I in team. Do what's best for the team. It's about the team. It's never about you. And that's true in some points. Be a great teammate. It's not about you. But then when that falls into our mental health, then we think, oh, it's not about me and my mental health. I don't deserve to take the day off. I don't deserve to tell the trainer I'm struggling. That is, I think, too far. We have to know the line of like, it's okay for me to say like, I can't go to team dinner because of this, because I personally like need this night to do A, B, and C, or I need to see my counselor. So it was kind of both of those things. One, reminding myself that like, these are universal emotions that like many people have experienced, including my coach. And then two, it is okay for me to put myself first, especially when it comes to my mental health, because that affects, you know, how I am as a player and how I am as a student.
I would just add that culture matters. And my experience when I was struggling most is that it didn't feel safe. Not only with the coaches, but with teammates to say like, I'm struggling. And I don't know if you're aware, but I've lost in 2 gold medal matches at the Olympics. And silver is not the new gold and bronze is not the new gold. It sucks to lose. And the first time it was kind of like, oh, we did our best with what we had. And the second time it was like, God damn it, we fucked that up. Excuse my language. And one of the reasons why we effed it up is because like we couldn't get ourselves right in a moment of test. And so what Victoria is really speaking to, and another way of saying that is like, you have to fill your bucket first before you can be good for those around us. So yes, we want to be a great teammate, but you can't be the best teammate, partner, daughter, whatever it is, son, like you can't do that unless you're getting you right first, because inevitably we will get tested. And the beautiful thing about sport, and also the really painful thing about sport, is it is a petri dish for getting tested on a daily basis. And so self-care is the number one thing you can do to show up and be your best and perform your best.
Great. And I want to be cognizant here. It's 1:41, and we've got Victoria and Nicole until 1:45, and I want to be respectful of their time. So I know we have a couple of questions in the chat. You guys think we have time for maybe the last 2 questions there? Would that be okay?
For sure, yeah. Nicole, is that okay with you?
Yeah, we can bang these out.
Okay, so I know the one, had to do with, okay.
I think
as far as Emily's question, yeah, we can hit as far as Emily's question though, about like what, how do you recommend athletes continue to break the stigma of mental health? Like talk about it, like Victoria's doing, you know? Some of the highest profile athletes have come out in the last 18 months and talked about their own mental health, and it is changing the paradigm. And so the best thing you can do is be informed, do the work yourself first so you have a credible voice to speak from, and then talk about it, because that is the thing that reinforces stigma, is that we don't talk about it, right? And so, and I get that I'm saying it like it's an easy thing to do, and it's not. But when you do the work, it becomes a little bit easier to put yourself out there.
And there are on top of that, there are easier ways to help break the stigma. Like when you see, you know, Kevin Love's article on anxiety, like let's just forward that to the team and be like, found this read, it's really cool. Has nothing to do with you. You're not having to be vulnerable about yourself, but you are in that moment encouraging the conversation around mental health. So there are ways that you can promote the convo without having to feel like you're putting yourself out there in a way that maybe you're not ready to yet. And then in the question about the discrepancies between male and female athletes, there's a big discrepancy I've personally seen just with male athletes, especially feeling that pressure of masculinity and that fear of vulnerability, because that's not what strong men, you know, through time have shown. So it's definitely something that is prevalent, but that's why I think it's been so cool to see a Kevin Love write that article, a LeBron James partner with Calm, the meditation app, you know, a Michael Phelps be on nationwide commercials about therapy. And I think that just is really important to especially help break the stigma between the genders. Nicole, what do you think you've seen there?
From my end, what I see is like, as someone who's training to be a psychologist, pay a lot of attention to like what comes up for me in a room when I'm working with someone. And what I notice is that I change my personality, I dial up my masculinity, I change the language that I use so that I can make sure that I'm connecting with a male versus with a female. And, you know, language really matters in the way that we shape things. As you know, like when you're listening, if someone's talking to you and you're just not like vibing with them, that like it's not gonna get deep, you know, like what they're saying. I've had that experiences with sports psychologists where like they kept talking about baseball and I was like, this is like your 5th year in a gym with volleyball. Why are you still using baseball terms? Like, and so I just completely shut down. So what I noticed for myself is like someone who's training to be a psychologist is like what takes place for me in a room with a male. It feels a little different than with females, and I'm actually really comfortable with men. So it's not like a gender thing. It's like, how do I relate to this person thing? And so that speaks to what's happening for the person that I'm with as well. And that like there is a natural resistance that and that barrier that I have to overcome when I'm working with male athletes. And I do think it, as Victoria said, has to do with social norms around vulnerability and masculinity, what that means.
Let's see, I know, so Rachel asked about, so you hit both of those. Now I know we're at 1:45, but our resident volleyball player, Maggie, had one more question. Is there any way we could get our volleyball? What's that? No, my daughter is, she is having a hard time right now because they're having an 8th grade Zoom thing, and she wanted to be part of that, and she wanted to be part of this, and I think she's freaking out that she couldn't do both. So I think she was doing her 8th grade thing, and hopefully she can hop on before the end. But Maggie is Immaculata volleyball player.
Okay, so my question I have is like your personality and everything, like how do you think that impacted your team? Like, do you think extroverts are more like able to perform well in sports, or do you think like it's a mixture or whatever?
That's a fun question. I would say that on our team, on the USA team, I would say about 60% of the girls were introverts. And myself included. I probably seem like an extrovert right now, but I'm not. I'm an introvert, like tried and true. So I don't think that aspect of personality necessarily like alone determines performance. If we look at other aspects of personality, like what would be like neuroticism, for example, or risk taking. What's the phrase that I'm looking for right now? Sorry. Like there's other aspects of personality that if you look at like how do we push limits, because athletes that tend to be good, they're willing to step outside of the bounds, which is like directly related to risk taking, but also like a willingness to be a little bit off axis, which is a little bit of narcissism. Most elite athletes have some narcissistic traits, you know. And so like there's aspects of personality that I think like you could come together and say like, you know, you could say that there might be some commonalities, but I don't think necessarily introversion or extroversion determines performance. I think what's more important than that would be like, how does the culture support the uniqueness of each individual? And that's what like is a big miss in a lot of athletic environments, is that there's a premium on the product, like the outcome. So people always talk about like the execution of the player rather than who the player is as an authentic human being, and helping that person be an authentic human being. And secondary comes how they're executing in the sport. And so when you can create environments where people feel safe to be their most authentic self, whether that means leading from a quiet like confidence if you're an introvert, or having space to just be you and be crazy and like have undaunted enthusiasm and be extroverted, like awesome. But I think the environment shapes more how like personality gets like manifested and how that relates to performance. Sorry, it took me a while to get to that answer.
Thank you so much. So I know we are 4 minutes over, so I apologize for that, but I did want to say thank you for coming on and being with us today. This really meant a ton, and I think everybody appreciates it. You're by far the coolest guests we've had, and I have had a one-armed Miss America contestant before. So you have even beat the one-armed Miss America contestant. So this was really, really helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us, and thanks for such great questions, you guys. Good luck with class the rest of this week.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.